Nice November weather in the eastern part of the United States, and that continues right into the weekend. But it is busy elsewhere. We've got showers and thunderstorms to look ahead to on Thursday in the southern plains and even into the central plains, and a winter storm of sorts setting up for parts of the Rockies with all sorts of wintry precipitation, even extending up into the Pacific Northwest. Two hurricanes on the map on November 2nd, when we didn't have a single system for the entire month of August. And there are other exciting things to come as we look ahead tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, which is in southwest Suffolk County, which is on Long Island, and it is part of the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. They're getting ready for winter, because it will get here, in spite of the warm temperatures. It will get here, and that means if you need rock salt or anything regarding snow and ice melt products, snow blowers, shovels, Omni's got it. You're still fixing up your yard for the fall. They still have some mulch and topsoil. And, of course, supplies to get you through any kind of adverse weather. Generators, sump pumps, and, of course, snow shovels and snow blowers. 631-756-1125. The best prices in town and anywhere in the tri-state area. The website, of course, as we all know, is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And here we are on a Wednesday. It's Wednesday, which we all know is Prince Spaghetti Day.
Anthony!
I don't know.
Anthony!
I don't know about you, but that commercial in some ways reminds me of my youth, and in other ways was different because Wednesday, first of all, Prince Spaghetti would never be in our house, and just like a jar of ragu, that just would never have happened. But I don't know. Wednesday was not Spaghetti Day. In fact, we never actually, to tell you the truth, Joe, my mother never made spaghetti. She that's a not a pasta that exists in Italy. If you go to Italy, they don't have spaghetti. They have linguine, they have angel hair pasta, but they do not have spaghetti.
I don't understand. I never was able to understand the Wednesday concept of spaghetti. At our house, of course, after my parents divorced, my sister and I and my mom were with my grandparents, and 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, that was dinner time. And it was usually a great big helping of spaghetti or linguine or whatever with meatballs and sausage or whatever. We ate. That was dinner, 1 o'clock. And then 7 o'clock in the evening, we'd come back for seconds. But we never did it on Wednesday. Wednesday was never specifically a spaghetti day at our house or any kind of day. But presumably, according to the Prince commercial, and I'll bet you, and of course, we're not going to do it here, folks. You have to find it for yourself. You go on YouTube and type in Prince Spaghetti commercial or whatever. I'm sure you could see that on YouTube. And the one thing my grandmother always used to say when she saw that commercial was that the kid, Anthony, reminded her of her own son, my Uncle Ron. And she always used to think of Ronnie, as she called him, running through the streets back in East Harlem. And but the spaghetti commercial was supposedly on the south side of Boston. On the south side of Boston, Wednesday is always Prince Spaghetti Day. I'm wondering whether or not that's true today, but
I don't even think it was true then. So yeah,
Anthony!
Saturday was steak. We always had steak on Saturdays. And Sundays was always pasta, 1 o'clock. We'd have dinner. You had around 6 or 7 o'clock if you got hungry. There was always leftovers.
Right.
And we might have pasta maybe on one other night during the week, but it wasn't usually with what we called it ragu. and the Italian word for ragu, which is a meat sauce, but not the jarred stuff. Uh, anyway, during the week we'd have another pasta dish on 1 or 2 days of the week, but it would be something different. It would be um, pasta with potato. My mother would make pasta patate, which was pasta with potatoes. Talk about a
Wow.
starch high. I mean, oh my God. Wasn't one of my favorite dishes. Or it might have been pasta with lentils, um, which I learned to like. I didn't care for it then. I probably would be okay with it now. But anyhow, I didn't have any of those things for dinner tonight. Um, we have it's quiet here in the east, but we do have a lot of weather going on, and there's a lot of things happening in the long range that are very, very interesting, especially for later next week. It may involve something tropical or somewhat tropical, but our resident hurricane statistician Anthony Orr has come up with another fun fact about this particular hurricane season, and specifically with the month of November, Joe. This is only the third year on record that the Atlantic Basin has two hurricanes simultaneously, Lisa and Martin. The other 2 years were 1932, where there was the Cuba hurricane, as it was called, and storm number 15, and in 2001 with Michelle and Noel. And again, all of this transpiring in the month of November. And as I commented on the open, uh, this is coming off a season where we had absolutely nothing during the month of August. Just odd the way weather works sometimes.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And such a quiet summer overall. And as we were moving into September, a lot of people saying, well, I guess we're not going to see very much. And now, with all of this activity going on, we may very well, I think, what was it, the 13 to 17 or 14 to 18 projected named storms? We're coming very close to that. And we may very
Well,
well have more tropical activity during the next few weeks.
yeah, if we wind up getting another, and it's not impossible, we could see another tropical named storm next week off the southeast coast of the U.S. or east of the Florida coast or east of the Bahamas. That could happen. That will take us to 14, which would be normal. So yeah, there's still time. There's still time. They may actually squeeze out an above normal season before it's all said and done. Um, otherwise, I got the GOES site is not working well, so I actually had to dig around a little bit, but I did find off the Hurricane Center site the satellite loops that they have available. Let me just make this a little bit smaller so that we could fit it all on the screen. And there's a little flash in there. A weak disturbance that yesterday we noted was down in the area of Louisiana, East Texas, and Arkansas, which WPC didn't even account for in their rain forecast. The remnants of that have actually survived to some degree, and you can see those clouds moving through North Carolina and Virginia. I even had some of those clouds today, at least for a while. Some high clouds have reached up into southern New Jersey and southern Pennsylvania, but this thing is just weakening and falling apart. And it certainly did not take away from the lovely day that was this Wednesday in the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic states.
Absolutely. And it was a gorgeous day out there today. And it's going to be another great day tomorrow, and it's going to be more of that to finish out the week on Friday. The next chance we'll have of any kind of unsettled conditions here may not come until later on Sunday or Sunday night or into early next week at the beginning of Monday. And even then, precipitation is going to be, it's just going to be a paucity of precipitation. In other words, very, very slight rain amounts coming our way. Nothing heavy, nothing substantial, no thunderstorms of any severity coming our way. That'll be for the next few days coming up.
Now, they may have resolved their issue, I think. No, let's see. November 2nd. The last picture's from 3 o'clock this afternoon. At least that's the first frame. So apparently, whatever's going on at the Go site. Oh, there we go. Now it's finally looping. Okay, it looks like they have fixed this, and I assume that's correct. By the way, there's a lot of flashes in this. Let me see if I can fix this. Hold on a second. Give me a moment here. I'll squeeze out, make it 36 frames, see what it's doing. This is not Martin, by the way. You see, out on the center right, that is not Martin. Martin is actually east of there. This is just another low that on Tuesday, with everything that happened yesterday and night before last and yesterday, has moved out to the east. There's another low there, and there's like a little ball of thunderstorms right around the center. I wonder if that's going to wind up becoming something as it moves out to the east. I don't think the Hurricane Center's not mentioning anything about it, but that is not Martin. We'll look at. I'll show you Martin in a moment. Meantime, we have Lisa. Lisa has made landfall in Belize. It's just inland. Came in as a hurricane. I think the top winds got to 80 or 85 miles an hour before making landfall, and now it continues on its west-northwest track. Looks like it might emerge in the Bay of Campeche in another day or so. I don't think anything is going to come of it, but this did not have. It was moving fast enough, and it developed close enough to the coastline that it really didn't have a chance to get much beyond a Category 1 hurricane, thankfully. Otherwise, you could see the action out in the west, and this is going to probably be a more widespread snow event for parts of the west than what we saw about a week or so ago, which was primarily up in the northern Rockies. This is going to cover a much larger area of geography. And hey, if you got a ridge in the east, Joe, you got a trough in the west, and it's November, so not a shocker that the first snows of the season are happening up in the western part of the United States.
Well, as it appears right now, Joe, over the next few weeks, at least over the next 8 to 14 days, if you want to look at the Climate Prediction Center's outlook, I mean, the east is going to be warm, the west is going to be cold. If you want any wintry weather, you're going to have to go west, young man or young lady.
Yeah, I don't know about that 8 to 14 day. I don't know if you have it available. I would just kind of be curious how much of that is front end loaded though, because I think as we get toward the latter part of that forecast period, we are going to start turning colder in the east.
Well, if you want to share, allow me to share. I'll show you what.
I already set it up for you to share.
Oh, some nights I go and I can't do it, and I have to ask, and other nights you do it before the show.
Some nights I forget. While you're getting ready, just want to say good evening to everybody on the chat board tonight, and to everybody watching. You lurkers out there watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show, but if you want, you can participate in the conversation. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get notified every time the Joe and Joe Show is on, which is normally Monday through Thursday at 7:35. But we had to move the start times around last night and again tonight, and there's no show tomorrow. Okay, so there will be no show tomorrow. We will be back on Sunday, and make sure you turn your notifications on so you don't miss it. And that's it. So, yep, you're up. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I mean, here's the 6 to 10 day outlook, and this is for the period from November the 8th. That is 1 week. That'll be next Tuesday, Election Day, November the 8th through November 12th. And you can see that this zone right here, this area of very dark red, is equivalent to 80 to 90% probability for above normal temperatures. And we're not too far out of that. In fact, if I zoom in here specifically on the tri-state area, you can see that we're not 80 to 90, we're only 70 to 80% here. But you can see that most of the east is, generally speaking now, east of the Mississippi, it's above normal. You have to go west of the Mississippi to get into progressively colder temperatures. And over here is a zone of, I believe, something like 70, 80% below normal probability. So it's cold in the west and mild or warm in the east. Now this is 6 to 10 days.
What's the
Now you
last
said
what's the last day on that 10-day?
November the 12th.
I don't know. I still think
Now do you want to?
I still think after the 10th we're going to be stair stepping down. But go ahead. Above normal could be 1 degree above normal. It doesn't necessarily mean it's 10 degrees above normal. So go ahead.
And here's the 10th to the 16th of November, and they still have above normal, not anywhere near what they were forecasting on the 6 to 10. Let's say 1, 2, 3. So here, the probability of above normal is 50 to 60%, covering most of the Atlantic seaboard, and still colder as you go west of the Mississippi, with below normal primarily indicated for portions of Washington State, Idaho, and also into Montana, and a sliver of North Dakota, and maybe just at the border of Wyoming. So that's where the below normal is, and that's where the above normal is. So still, at least through the 16th, Joe, they have temperature. And you may be right that this right here might be only indicative of a temperature of maybe a couple of degrees above the norm. It would be much chillier, much colder than what we are experiencing now and what we will be experiencing in the coming next few days. But still, in the overall scheme of things, somewhat above normal. And one would have to, if you do some simple extrapolation, one would have to believe that eventually all of this cold air, this below normal, is eventually going to spill over into the east. And that may be holding forth until after the middle part of the month.
I beg to differ. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I beg to differ a bit. Um, I think it'll come in a little sooner than that. But there are occasions when I'm off, so we'll see. Chuck Gardillo says it's possible that this late season for tropical weather is due to the lack of upwelling from the lack of tropical weather earlier. It's quite possible. It's certainly possible. Water temperatures are still running rather high, so that certainly could be part of the equation. I've got the wide views as we were just talking about Lisa. Let's take a look at Martin. Hurricane Martin.
Incidentally, Joe, you and I actually worked with Elisa Martin, believe it or not, at News 12.
We did? I did?
Lisa LaRocca.
Oh, okay. All right.
Got married to a very nice gentleman by the name of John Martin. And so, professionally, she is, or at least on our Facebook page, she's Lisa LaRocca Martin. But if you take out the LaRocca and just simply go Lisa Martin, there you go.
All right. And there is Martin. Actually, if you look closely on the loop, there is an eye or some semblance of an eye that has developed. And by the way, it's separated completely now. There's a frontal system that's run out to the east, and this was part of the. This was, the core was part of that. It just sort of separated away. And then you can see the low I was talking about earlier right behind it. So you got an interesting train here of three systems, two non-tropical, and a hurricane in between. Now, you don't see that too often.
Yes. And it's a weird month of November. Again, startling contrast between July and August. July, again, kind of a slack month. But by mid-August, things start to really begin to rev up in the tropical activity department. And again, August was dead. And you say to yourself, well, what's going on here? Maybe we'll get a little brief bit of activity in September. But so far, November, by far and away, far more active than either July and August. And as I said, might see if maybe one or two more tropical systems before this month is over.
And the Hurricane Center on their outlook does highlight what we were talking about with an area from the Bahamas east and north of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico on the 5-day outlook. They pretty much haven't changed anything in terms of the wording. 20% in the next of something developing in the next 5 days, and being that this is Wednesday and we're talking about something that's probably going to be from Sunday and beyond, you're not going to probably see too much adjusting of that forecast for another day or two. Well, I would be surprised if you did, but it'll be early next week. Maybe Monday or Tuesday will be the bit more of the center of attention, perhaps, off the southeast coast. I do want to just check really quick what they're doing with Lisa on the track model guidance. And there it is. This is you can see now all the track model guidance here has this, just virtually all the models except for a couple of weird ones, all have it going into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. And the NHC forecast is, here we go. The NHC forecast with Lisa, oh, got the wrong graphic. It's this one. There you go. So it actually, they have it coming off as a depression. I can't really follow how they get, what is the sequence of the D's here. They've got the circle with the D, which indicates post-tropical, but or a remnant low or remnant depression. So I assume that that's at the end of the forecast period. But you see the track that they have to 1 p.m. Saturday, and then they turn it southward, and then they make it a remnant low, and that sort of makes that does make sense considering what's going to be happening in the Western Gulf. Aloft is not going to be the most favorable conditions for this thing to really regenerate once it gets there. So another system going into Central America. We've had a few of those this year. And who knows? There still might be time for one more. Radar tonight, give it a quick refresh here. You can see the dying area of light showers in western Virginia, southern West Virginia, central North Carolina, and eastern South Carolina. Otherwise, it's quiet in the northeast down to about Maryland and Delaware and northern Virginia. And it's also quiet through the rest of South Carolina, Georgia, and across the Gulf states. Seeing a couple of thunderstorms in the interior of Florida. Meanwhile, out in the west, we've got all sorts of patches of precipitation in a number of states. Even some showers reaching down almost, but not quite to LA. Looks like there's a thunderstorm well to the east of LA. And there's some scattered showers and some thunderstorms over the rest of California, and probably eventually getting into some snow in the Sierra Nevadas and also in points further north. WPC on their snowfall forecast map, we'll give it an update here. We'll go to the probability of at least 2 inches. And there you have it. They make it a little brighter. And a fairly large area of 2-inch plus snowfalls from Washington State into Idaho and Montana, through Wyoming, down into Colorado and Utah, and even down into Arizona, probably even into Flagstaff. I'm going to put the probability of at least 8 up so we can see that there are some areas where in the blue we're talking about 40 to 50% probability or higher probability of at least 8. In those areas in the blue, in western Wyoming, central and northern Idaho, northwestern Washington State, and in the western half of Colorado. Again, no surprise here with the trough in the west the way it is, and we are at the beginning of November, so that there is enough cold air coming into the west to produce all this. Isn't that lovely?
Well, it's November. What do you expect? There's going to be some snow breakout, be it in the west or in the east or whatever. We're getting into that time of the year. And eventually, Joe, I know it's hard for a lot of people in the east or on our chat board to accept, but eventually it is going to be our turn. When that happens, we'll let you know.
By the way, I looked back at a couple of runs. This is up in the stratosphere. And this is actually has started over the weekend. Now it's gotten a little more consistent, but notice the polar vortex begins to stretch in about 7 or 8 days. It starts to stretch with a split that develops. So that's something new. At day 11, we've got a split in the polar vortex with one center in north central Canada and the other one over Siberia. And as I run it through the end of the forecast period, the split disappears, but it's still stretched, and the primary weight of the vortex looks like it wants to drop down toward Greenland. So we keep getting, if I run the loop, just notice over time, you see those the darker oranges, I guess, if you want to call that orange, I don't know, beige maybe, where it gets darker. Those are warm air disruptions that are coming into the polar vortex. There's one in particular in about 5 days that moves through eastern Siberia, and I think that's the one that initiates this split that occurs around the 12th to the 13th. Now, that could indicate that we may eventually go into some sort of blocky pattern for the second half of the month at some point. We'll have to look over the next couple of days what kind of clues the teleconnections tell us. But if you are a winter weather lover, you want to see this. You want to see the polar vortex being stretched out. And on the weak side, you don't want to see it wrapped up like a tight little ball. And so far, the polar vortex seems to want to be on the weak side. So put that on. You can check the box. Weak polar vortex for you snow lovers. Weak polar vortex is checked. The other thing that is going to be happening as we take a look at what it looks like upstairs is that we are going to see the trough come into the eastern part of the United States. And this ridge is not going to last forever. But while it's here, you'll notice, and I'll run it back. This is today. So this is today right here. And you have a little weak trough there in the southeast, which is why you've got this weak area of precip that's dying out. That's actually an upper low that's dropping off the Carolina coast and down into the Bahamas and toward Cuba and the Dominican Republic. In the meantime, a big upper high or a ridge forms in between, and I'm still banking, Joe, on the idea that we're going to see temperatures in the middle and maybe even some upper 70s over the weekend.
Well, again, no question that it's going to be near record temperatures this weekend. And again, for the Hudson Valley, we've never seen temperatures higher than 74, 75 at this particular time of the year. Not saying that it could not get above that. This might very well be the situation where we may very well see temperatures even warmer than that. But for places to the south, and you pointed this out, Joe, I mean, for central New Jersey, urban locations, it could very well get into the mid and upper 70s for the at least for the start of this weekend. And amazing spell of mild weather or warm weather for, again, this particular time of the year.
This low down here, this upper low, is all part of what is a general area of below normal pressures that exists at the surface across the central and eastern Caribbean. And from here, we're going to wind up seeing a low develop over the weekend and into early next week. But meanwhile, you can see the flow. We have no air. The upper air, nothing is coming from Canada here in the eastern part of the United States. Canada's completely shut off. The cold air is coming into the northwest. It's driving down into the plains. And that's where it's going to stay for now. But we don't really have any kind of we don't have any cross-polar flow is non-existent at the moment. But we don't have a jet that's coming from Canada straight down into the eastern United States. That ridge will weaken some. You can see the upper low is still sitting there off the southeast coast on Monday. Here comes another deep upper low dropping down into the west. So we still have some ridging here in the east into the middle part of next week, but the difference here is that the ridge is actually built up more over the Great Lakes and in southeastern Canada. So there's probably going to be some sort of big surface high that's going to build up in New England and in upstate New York. So I think after Monday, we'll probably cool down. We'll still be above normal, but we'll probably cool down off these highs that we're going to see this weekend. And then eventually over time, what that upper low does off the southeast coast, does it migrate westward across Florida, which is what we have on this run into the eastern Gulf, and then it gets picked up by this next upper low that's swinging through the Rockies and Plains, and that brings rain up the east coast? Or are we going to have this more offshore Florida when that trough swings east? And also, what we don't know is are we going to get any kind of tropical or subtropical development on it? There's some clues on the model, Joe, but there's not. It's not one of these instances where you have an obvious wrapped up tropical storm or hurricane. This is a little bit more diffuse, and there's a number of little lows that are running around. When I bring up the surface, you'll see it. So it's hard to know whether this is going to become tropical or not, but this might be the one chance of rain that we have for later next week. And it may not come till later Thursday or even on Friday, or maybe Thursday night, Friday. So we're going to be dry for the most part, at least into Wednesday. And then after that, you see the jet does come down a bit. Now, this is November 13th. We do have some flow from Canada back into the eastern part of the United States. And as that trough lifts out, another trough swings into the east. I don't know if I believe it the way it looks like, the way the model's showing it here, with an energetic cutoff down in Virginia and North Carolina. But this is a much colder look. Again, I'm still thinking this process all starts to get underway after about the 10th of the month, and it may take a while. It's going to be one of these stair-step grinding processes that it's not going to get cold all of a sudden with one cold front. It's going to be a series of systems that we're going to have to deal with. But we do go to a colder look by the time we get to about the 17th or 18th of November. I would probably guess, if I pull up the temperature anomaly, yeah, you see it's more below normal here. Actually, the first day of below normal temperatures comes, Joe, right around the 13th of November. And then it's mostly below normal in the most of the eastern half of the United States after the 13th. So maybe CPC is going to do a little bit of adjusting the next time they put their long-range forecast out.
Well, the outlook, as I see it from the Weather Prediction Center, they have an old front that is draped somewhere over southwestern Pennsylvania through lower New York State and into central New England. But a more vigorous frontal system, that's the one that I think you're promoting to carry a chillier or colder air mass into the Northeast. That's across the Great Lakes. That's on Monday morning. And then by Tuesday morning, what they have is that vigorous weather front that's stretched or draped across southern New Jersey back to southern Pennsylvania and up into the lower Great Lakes, and a 1040 millibar high that's located or centered near James Bay. Now, that system that you spoke of in the southeastern states is, for the longest time...
It's on the screen, by the way.
For the longest time was being indicated as nothing more than an inverted trough. Now they actually have drawn on the hand-drawn prog for Tuesday morning. This is the update as of 2150Z this afternoon. They actually have a storm that is located somewhere just to the north of the Bahamas, with the inverted trough is stretching parallel to the southeast coastline up to about the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And that is the one, I suppose, that may have a say in our weather locally here by the latter part of next week, maybe. Yeah. But it'll all be dependent also on where that high goes. That high in James Bay or near James Bay on Tuesday of next week, by Wednesday, they've got a solid 1033 high pressure cell centered over Maine, and the low and its associated inverted trough is still pretty much where it was the day before, not being able to make much movement because of that tremendous blocking high. But the question is, after Wednesday of next week, how does the high move out over the Atlantic, and how does it possibly open the door for that tropical system to come northward, and just how much of that moisture comes up the coast, maybe toward us? We'll see.
Yeah, and I've got the map that's up there on the screen. That's the 150-hour GFS. There's actually 3 low centers that are shown. One that's got several isobars on the northeast part of it. Actually, there's four low centers that are in this sort of very broad area of low pressure. And I think that's going to be part of the equation here. Are there really going to be 4? I could see how there might be several low centers out there. Are there going to be four of them? Is there going to be one that's going to just like take over and become one primary system and develop it to something subtropical or maybe even tropical? I don't know. One thing I do know, regardless of whether it's tropical or not, the pressures down in the Bahamas are very low. You've got a 1042 high in James Bay, with pressures down close to 1,000 millibars off the Florida coast. There's going to be a rather tight pressure gradient say, from southeast Virginia and particularly down into coastal North and South Carolina. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's some tidal issues. If this materializes like this, that there might be some tidal flooding issues that could develop. Where are we in when's the next new moon or full moon?
Well, we have a full moon coming up on Tuesday, and not only do we have a full moon, we're also going to have a total eclipse of the moon on Tuesday. So you can't get the alignment any better than that. And I'm sure that if we go by the tidal lag, so to speak, depending upon the topography of whatever zone you're looking at, that would mean that the highest tides would likely be not necessarily Tuesday, but maybe Wednesday into Thursday of next week. So yeah, the moon is going to play a major say in whatever coastal disturbance occurs, and that could lead to some significant or widespread tidal and flooding, and maybe even some beach erosion again during the middle part of next week.
So it'll be interesting to see how the models do with this in terms of the development. And as far as the rain from this is concerned, obviously with that high like that, we're going to have some nice weather here. The air will be cooler, but it won't be crazy cool, and it won't certainly be cold. Not by my definition. When I talk cold, I'm thinking below normal temperatures. And if we this is for 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, so that'll be close to the highs of the day. We check the temperature anomalies. They're still a little bit above normal. They're not crazy above normal like you see down in the Gulf states, just a little bit above normal on Tuesday, and actually just about near normal for just a little bit. It's a little below normal in upstate New York and New England Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and then a little bit above normal Wednesday afternoon of next week. And then, of course, after that, you see how what the model does is that western storm basically absorbs all the moisture. The low is sort of left behind there. And that may not be right. There looks like there's one low center in the Northeast Gulf. There looks like there's another low center in eastern North Carolina. And the area of rain just kind of moves northward up the coast for Thursday night into Friday as a deep storm heads over up into Minnesota with maybe some big snows for the eastern Dakotas and Minnesota if this verifies. And there you see there's colder air that comes in behind all of that for the weekend of the 12th and 13th. And then we have to wait for later in the period. Now, I know that they're looking at this now on this run, Joe. Maybe it was this one or the last run. There it is. Some sort of, this is just going to, obviously it's not going to be there on the next run, but it does have some sort of low with colder air coming into the east and a 94 low east of New Jersey. And you can even see they got dark blue snow in southeastern Pennsylvania and northern Delaware on the long range. So, the snow lovers are looking at this and they're like, oh my God, it's already here. It's not even the middle of November and we've got something on the map. It's that time of year. Stuff's going to show up. You're going to start seeing these things, folks, in the long range more and more over the next couple of weeks. And 99% of them will not come to pass. Let's put it that way.
And
none
you heard it
shall
first.
Pass.
You've heard it first from Joe Stradamus, folks.
Correct. Correct. So, on that particular note, let's see. So I have a Briller Jeopardy here. Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, so I have a Briller Jeopardy here, folks. So it's another one of these where we all can participate. Okay. Are you ready, Mr. Rayo?
I am ready, sir.
So the national average for precipitation for the entire year is 30.21 inches. Okay? That's the national average. That includes the deserts of the Southwest. That includes the tropical areas in the Southeast and Florida and the Pacific Northwest, et cetera, et cetera. So when you do all the math in all the states, it comes out to 30.21 inches. So I'm going to give the numbers. I'll give you the location, and you decide whether it's above or below that national average. Okay? Are you ready?
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Actually, I'm going to give you the state. We'll start with the People's Republic of the State of New York.
Oh, I think we're above that 30-inch total.
Okay. And everybody, it's New York. New York, the People's Republic of the State of New York.
Now, do you want me to? Do you
Is it-
want me to? Do
is
you want
it-
me to? You want me to give you a number for New York or?
somebody decided. Okay, yeah, New York. So no, if you want to guess a number, you can, but it's just above or below.
All right, I'll just say above. Above.
Above. All right, you know what? Maybe it'd be more fun if we gave a number. Let me see how he has this worded. Each below, above, below, or even the national average. So it's above. It's for New York. So it's above or below is the is the choice. Everybody seems to be on board with above, and the answer is above. Joe.
Do you have a number for New York? Because
Yeah.
I would say like 45.
41.8 is the statewide average.
Okay.
Okay. The show me state, Missouri.
Missouri. Ah. Wah. Huh. That's a good one. I will say because they're in the Central Plains, so they could be dry like in the desert Southwest, but it could also be wet up because of the Great Lakes. I'll say even. I'm going to say 30.
Okay, you're going to say even. We've got Northern Grace saying below. Christina Pedia says above. Tyler Fenga says below. Chuck Cardillo says above, as does David Fuller, Chris Alley, Miss Fallerite, Jacqueline Baxter, David Fuller saying 49. Craig Carlberg. There's most people going for above. Miss Fallerite says, pointing out it's the Ozark region. If you haven't watched the series Ozark, by the way, you got to watch it. I highly recommend it. You'll feel like taking a shower after every episode because there isn't a single redeeming character in the entire show. The answer for the Missouri is above 42.2. Alaska.
Wow, I would not have thought it would be that high. Wow, 42, but that's even more than what the state of New York, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
The next state is Axala. The state of Axala, which is Alaska backwards.
Oh, okay. I would say below because it's cold air. You can't make a lot of snow, for example. And well, now that I'm thinking about it, sometimes you get those Aleutian lows during the wintertime that might dump a lot of precip. I'll still stick with below normal.
Well,
30.
you got to figure too. The southeast part, particularly down around Juneau, probably gets a lot of precip.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the north slope gets probably next to nothing, relatively speaking. So you can average it out in between. Just about everybody is saying below, except David Fuller says above. But everybody saying Tim Latex per Dream says above normal there. Howard Hassel says below. Joe Gaffney says below. Dennis Cassia says below. If Dennis Cassia says below, it's got to be below. And you know what, Joe? It's below. 22.5. Okay, next one is Minnesota.
I will say below again.
Minnesota is our next one. So let me put it on the chat board. Minnesota, so everybody can see. And Chuck Cardillo starts the ball running with below. David Fuller above. Johnny Quest below. Howard Hassel above. Chris Alley above. Dennis Cassia above. Leon Probitsky above. Chuck Cardillo below. Jacqueline Baxter below. Joe Gaffney below. Alfred Phillips, yes, Steve LaPointe, Alfred Phillips and Wainwright, Alaska says it's below. Christinapedia above for Craig Carlberg, below for Mark D42, Steve LaPointe, above, Tim above, Ms. Fallerite about equal, the chairman, yes, and by the way, yes, thank you Johnny Quest for this is, Johnny Quest came up with tonight's question. And Tyler Fienga says, I'm going to go above, given that Missouri was above, but the answer is for Minnesota, 27.3, so they are below. And our fifth and final state tonight, the fifth and final state tonight is Virginia. Virginia. Beautiful state, Virginia, particularly in the west. I love driving I-81 in Virginia. It's 320 miles, I think, from south to north. Seems like you're on there forever. But at least you got the mountains to look at. Jason Schaefer, Leon Probitsky, Chuck Cardillo, Chuck Cardillo all above, Howard Hassel below, Tyler Fienga above. Joe Rayo says above, Chris Alley says below, Johnny Quest above, Christinapedia above, David Fuller, Jacqueline Baxter says above for lovers because Virginia is for lovers. Joseph Gaffney says above. Ms. Fallerite above. Dennis Cassia says below. Northern Grace above. James Davison below. Craig Carlberg above. Steve LaPointe below. Mark DeCara below. And Mark D42 below. Jason Schaefer is... Yes, Jason Shea, Johnny Quest could eat his hat if it's below. And the answer is for Virginia, 44.2 is the statewide average, so they are above.
And there you are.
By the way, we had a super chat hit, and I cannot see who it is. Do you see it? Because I don't see it.
I will check.
There it is. I got it. It was David Fuller. Thank you, David.
Fuller.
He says, I hope you're both doing well tomorrow. You start your 9-weight physical therapy for your knee, whatever that means. Oh, you'll find out. Glad it will be warm. Yes, just take it slow. Don't rush it. Do your therapy. Very, very important to do your therapy with what you're dealing with. So,
right.
Anyhow. Any parting thoughts on this Thursday night?
No, we're going to be off tomorrow. We'll be off Friday. We'll be off Saturday. And then Sunday, what are we doing on Sunday?
I guess we'll be on at our regular time, unless I have to make
Coffee with Joe and Joe at 11 o'clock?
I think so, unless I have to make a last-minute switch, in which case I will let you know. But right now, I'm thinking we'll probably do the show at 11 in the morning. Okay?
And I just want to make a mention that the German American Social Club, of which Mrs. Rayo is a director, we're very happy to say that we're coming very close to a sellout on our tribute to the Honeymooners. We're going to have, in fact, the son of the legendary Art Carney, a.k.a. Ed Norton, at this particular get-together, and it is scheduled for the afternoon of November the 12th, a Saturday at 3 p.m., and we're getting very excited as we get close to it. And if anybody out there is a Honeymooner fan and wants to come, you could always check out my Facebook page, because I've had many different ads, if you will, or even a printout of the flyer that we've been distributing for this event. But if you're big into Honeymooners trivia, if you want to see some lost episodes of the Honeymooners, if you want to sit down to a good old-fashioned meal of low-cal pizza and Neapolitan knockwurst, that's among the things that we have scheduled for this get together again a week from this coming Saturday, and maybe we'll see you out there. Joe, I know I'm not going to see you out there.
No. By the way, just really quick, I just saw what Miss Fowlerite said. There is severe weather risk tomorrow. I forgot to do this, but the Storm Prediction Center, just to let everybody know, does have a slight risk of severe weather in northwest Texas and western Oklahoma, with a marginal risk extending up and through Kansas and southeast Missouri. And there is a 2% tornado risk in parts of Oklahoma and in Texas. But the next day, because we haven't seen this much severe weather lately, but the next day, SPC has an enhanced risk of severe weather in northeast Texas, southwest Arkansas, and southeast Oklahoma, with a large area of slight risk going all the way up into southwest Missouri, and that's day 3. Okay, so this is for Friday into Saturday.
Friday.
Right. So this map that's up now, that's for Thursday into Friday, and then the next one is which is the one with the enhanced risk, is Friday into Saturday, and I don't think they're going to be showing anything. What's the day? Yeah, predictability too low for day 4, potential too low for 5, 6, and 7, and predictability too low for day 8. So I just wanted to show that before we said goodbye tonight. So on that particular note, everybody enjoy the next few days with the really nice weather and the nice warm weather in the most of the eastern part of the U.S. And Joe and I will see you back on Sunday at 11 a.m. Ta-ta!
Au reservoir.